episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. Today, two of my favorite best guests are here once again for Great Scott, your true crime Phil. This is how the day is going. Last show, by the way, we had some breaking news on Alan Greenberg, but now COE, I'm hearing myself. Are you hearing that, Scott? Hearing like a weird little bit of an echo?
I do. No.
You don't. No idea what that is with the Fisher Price equipment, but here we go. It's a Friday. This is a show where Fridays are more low key, have a little bit of fun. Scott, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm about to put you on the spot because I reached out to you last night. We just did a show on Ellen Greenberg, who, as everyone here knows by now, she died back in January 26th of 2011. Obviously, this January will be 14 full years. This case has never been investigated. She was stabbed 20 times. This is not what we're talking about today, by the way, but I want to get Scott's take. Stabbed 20 times, 10 to the front, 10 to the back of the neck and head. It was never investigated, and it was ruled a homicide initially, but then changed to an unaliving. And now the Chester County DA just released a press release. And I bring this up because Scott Duffy lives in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I don't think far from Chester County. I don't know if you're in Chester County, but basically what they're saying is, look, we've moved this investigation into inactive status. When I read that, it was like a gut punch. But then further down, it does say, because we cannot meet our burden of proof with the information evidence presently available, we place this investigation in an inactive status. However, there is no statute of limitations for criminal homicide in Pennsylvania, and because investigators can take new directions, we are not closing the case. Therefore, we will not be answering any questions about this matter. According to Gavin Fish, who we just had on, who's been following this case like crazy and knows the ins and outs and is an amazing journalist, he said no office in the Commonwealth has ever referred to it as a criminal homicide. And here they say no statute of limitations for criminal homicide. And they go on to say, because investigations can take new directions, we're not closing the case. Scott Duffy, I know you're a glass half full guy. What do you think here? Is this positive news for the Greenberg family? Negative news? How do you see it?
I see it as a mixed bag of information. Chester County I think they're now the third prosecuting or law enforcement agency to receive this case, right? First, Philadelphia, I think the second being the Pennsylvania State Attorney General's office, and now the Chester County District Attorney's office. So from what I gather, it is a statement that says there won't be any further investigation from this point onward. In other words, no active leads. But I like it because it's acknowledging, like you said, hey, there's no statute of limitations for a homicide. They're not calling it a homicide. They are sticking with what the medical examiner's office has referred it to as, the last being a suicide. But it's one of those catch-22 where they're saying, but we're investigating it, or we're giving it to it as a review for a homicide. And so thereby, I think if a medical examiner's office is able to switch it back to a homicide, they are just leaving that open, that gray area where, hey, okay, we're back in the game. But they're basically saying we do not have enough evidence to go forward. I like the fact that it's publicized, that the case is always being reviewed by somebody. And so thereby, if there is somebody out there who might have a piece of information who's never been interviewed or provided information to law enforcement, perhaps this will hit them and say, let me reach out and see if I can offer something.
And yeah, and Scott, I know you've been on before with Josh and Sandy, and I talked to Josh this morning. He was actually on a golf course. He said that they were contacted, by the DA ahead of the release of this press release, and but he was kind of confused himself. So he said that he thought they were going to announce it was active, and Sandy had heard inactive, and now we know it's inactive. But what would you say to parents who spent? Gavin said that the figure is now $800,000 of their own money to try to investigate this case on their end because it's never been investigated, and who now are being told this is on inactive status. What would you say to them face to face?
Never give up hope. They haven't given up hope since day one, and they continue to fight this battle that should not be their battle. I am in agreement that this should be reviewed back in its home court, and the medical examiner's office, regardless of its initial I say initially it was a homicide, then turned into a suicide. And I know that the parents and the people around them are trying to get that changed to, at the very least, undetermined. So thereby it frees law enforcement's hands to keep going further. But at the same time, Chester County knows that, hey, we've done due diligence, and there's nothing that we have that's proof positive to go forward in regards to a homicide investigation and overturning a medical examiner's statement. So it's still an uphill battle, but not to give up hope.
Yeah, and COE, please put this link into the last show. We could put it into this show too. Finally, I feel like I can take a breath. I was, Joel, why are you telling them this? This is what my mom would say. But I was at the gym trying to work off some stress when I got that press release. That press release raised my blood pressure. I thought I was going to have an aneurysm, thinking that the Greenbergs were just basically shut out. But after talking to Scott and Gavin, feeling a little bit better, and got to get justice for the family and for Ellen. And this case drives me crazy, the Ellen Greenberg case, in that it is probably one of the, as far as for me, the biggest miscarriage of justice that I have ever personally reported on or been a part of. So I hope things get cleared up here, and there's a turn in the investigation. Before, I was sitting in a black hole. Now I'm too brightly lit. One of these years, the COE and I will get the Fisher-Price studio in full working condition. Phil Waters, Scott Duffy, it was my fault. I had breaking news. I typically send you guys a link. I sent it to you very last second. Phil Waters was demanding it. Said, did you get a link? I said, sorry, and I sent it, but still no Phil Waters. Have you gotten a text from the great Phil Waters? Oh, you're muted now.
Yeah, we did get a text. If you see that something came up and he was going to be a little bit later, but he didn't indicate how much later.
Miss CC, I see your comment there. I said, for me, a case that I have covered. She's talking about George Zimmerman. Trust me, there's many, many cases that are giant miscarriages of justice, but I'm talking specifically one that I have covered. So I just want to clarify that. By the way, I'm just getting a text right now from Sandy Greenberg, who says, I am so overwhelmed. So sorry I missed this. I'm just going to text her back real quick. I don't think people realize the pain these families go through. Scott Duffy certainly does, but they're not happy. Obviously, they want it to be on an active status, but look, Scott's been around a long time. Gavin Fish is an amazing investigative reporter, and Gavin's doing a show on this tonight at 7:30 on his channel, Gavin Fish. So hopefully, it's, even though it looks bad, it's a positive step forward here. So anyway, now on, I don't know. I'm actually, the reason I went into my text messages, I'm a disaster today, is yeah, I don't see. Phil just said, oh, that was you asking, did we get a link?
Yeah.
So I sent that link to you. So where is Phil Waters?
So if you go up a little bit before that,
oh, I'm going to be late.
Yeah, I'm going to be late.
Okay.
Something came up.
Phil's always mysterious. What do you think it is that came up, Scott Duffy? Let's take
oh, I'm sure it's work related.
Yeah, sure it is work related. Ferrari related. Okay. On to this story is fascinating to me, and I'll tell you why. Because there is a nexus to the Dan Markel case here, which is our original true crime case, and this case involves, in an odd way, Dan Markel and the Adelsons, and we'll explain why in a minute. But first, I want to kind of lay the groundwork here. We're talking about a victim here. His name is 42-year-old Matthew Restelli. Utah police. It's a town called American Fork. Put a fork in it. They are cooked. These three people. But in American Fork, Utah, police there announced the arrest of two more people in connection with the July murder of 42-year-old Matthew Restelli. The two new people who were arrested, 36-year-old Kathryn Restelli, the estranged wife, and her mother, 59-year-old Tracy Grist, both charged with conspiracy to commit murder. And there's more, like the old infomercials used to say. So Kathryn has a brother. They all have different last names, but the brother is 33-year-old Kevin Ellis. Now, he's already in custody for charges of possession of a dangerous weapon by a restricted person and possession of a controlled substance. The reason he's also in custody is he shot and killed the estranged wife's husband. He shot and killed, saying it was in self-defense. That lays a little bit of the groundwork. Scott Duffy, what does this mean? This guy confessed to shooting him, saying it was in self-defense. So he's been in custody, I think, since July in Utah. And he's there on charges of possession of a dangerous weapon by a restricted person and possession of a controlled substance. That's a drug. But what does that mean, a dangerous weapon by a restricted person? And why have they not yet brought murder charges? Because a lot of information has come out on this.
Yeah, so murder charges have probably not been put forward on him yet because he's sticking to his story that it's self-defense, and law enforcement has to prove by, with probable cause that it is not self-defense. And reading some of the details, the fact that the weapon appeared to be placed as opposed to someone who was, lunging forward, and thereby it's an imminent threat. The fact that the weapon was reversed, showing that, well, where's the threat? Is he lunging forward, or is he, has it like this? And is either going to stab himself, or so things like that they probably knew early on. Hey, the story he's providing is not jiving with the evidence, but we still have to show that this was a homicide. The fact that he's detained on charges outside or other than that of a homicide, that they have enough to move forward on him, and that, so for example, if there are things that law enforcement wants to get him off the street but doesn't have enough yet, are there other charges that they can lodge forward? And so it sounds like this individual probably, this is a guess here, if it's a person restricted, we call it person prohibited. So thereby he might have a prior felony conviction, or depending on the state charge, right? Different states have different versions. So domestic abuse, which doesn't have to be a felony, but if there's a domestic abuse conviction, or that can prohibit somebody, or a mental health diagnoses that would also prevent him from being. So he's a person who should not own a gun legally, thereby has the gun, even in the purest sense, if it was he's shooting an intruder, that that law enforcement could charge that individual with person prohibited. In other words, you shouldn't have had that weapon in the first place. That's that, and then of course drugs. So he had either drugs on his person or somewhere around him in order for them to say, okay.
I mean, but the bottom line is it's pretty clear and evident that they believe he's responsible for murder. So they're keeping him on these charges until they can get to the next step. Correct?
Yeah, they're building their case, and they needed him off the street. Otherwise, they would have just let him be out there. But
now they got the estranged wife and the mother off the street too. This is a part that's fascinating to me. From Ashley Rose, I wonder if Donna Sue Adelson knows about this. She must be flattered. So they saw the Adelson fiasco and thought they could do better. I mean, Scott, how common or uncommon is it? I mean, it happens to be our case that we've been, our original case. How often do you hear about, a murder plot where the people are looking up previous murders, so I guess I'm assuming so that they don't make the same fatal flaws. I use that word, I guess, in a different way, but so they make the same fatal flaws and end up in prison like Donna Adelson or Charlie Adelson. They were obviously trying to avoid the mistakes they made. Have you heard of this? Is this common to look up other crimes before you commit one?
Yeah, and this is just human nature, Joel. No matter how many times it's publicized through podcasts, through true crime shows, through the news, there's nobody who's learning from it. And it just goes to show human nature. Hey, maybe I'll do it from my work computer. Maybe I'll do it. I have a tendency to believe that that's just it's that arrogance. If you are a person, now think about it, your viewers and whatnot, we're not looking to kill people. And maybe there's one or two out there, but we're not looking to kill people. So our minds are not in that mode. And so when somebody is really looking to kill somebody, they've stepped over a line. And a lot of times reason and rationality check out. And what I mean by that, in the sense of that their careful planning is not careful. So thereby they're looking up stupid stuff, or indicating to their best friends or family members, I'm glad or I'm happy this happened, or hey, stay tuned. They're foretelling. We just, there was a study done with regards to, the tremendous amount of mass shootings over the years of what is it? And often, I would say a high percentage in the 90s, that these individuals had foretold and given some clue about what they're about to do. So it's very tough to keep it to themselves, and then of course to lay off the computer. This is what jams them all the time, and it seems to be the same type of investigation that finds the same evidence, and then they come up with their BS story.
The great Phil Waters is in the building. Phil, I gotta say, you look fantastic. This is, I think, the best I've ever seen you look. The haircut, the new glasses, the trim goes.
It's a glow.
I mean, it's amazing. I'm dumbfounded by how good you look. Is this a result of being on the Big Island for 6+ months?
Oh, yes. This is a reflection of that. Yes, exactly.
I've never seen you look so good. I'm sorry. Phil Waters. I'm going to read a comment. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story we're covering today. Phil got a glow up. Yes, he sure did. Look at this. Abby Crossing, friend of the show. Evil meets stupidity over and over and over. Let me just ask you an open-ended question, Phil, before we get to the details of the story. In your many years as a homicide detective, were you ever amazed by the stupidity of certain people, particularly criminals?
Oh, I can think of several moments where the level of stupidity was increased exponentially. But yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of levels. And I guess you have to define stupid or stupidity in terms of the way Scott and myself look at that. I've seen a lot of very clever, sly, and on an intellectual level, very smart people that have done stupid things and evil things. So then there are your guys that are guys and gals that are just stupid. And so they think they can beat the system or commit the perfect crime, and their mental capacity that's way beyond their mental capacity.
So we're kind of diving into this new story, Phil. And one of the things that obviously caught my attention about it, this is the murder of a guy named Matthew Restelli, 42 years old, who was allegedly lured from California to Utah, where he was then killed by his estranged wife's brother, according to police. Now the estranged wife and the mother and the son, the brother, are all, I don't know if he's her son, but he's definitely her brother. If that makes sense. So they're all now behind bars. But what I just asked Scott about, that I'm going to ask you about right now, Phil Waters, the reason this got me so interested is they seize the estranged wife's phone, and lo and behold, their search is there looking up Dan Markel. He's a murder for hire plot victim. They're Googling Donna Sue Adelson. That is our original true crime story. And they're presumably Googling this so they don't make the same mistakes as the Adelsons, because Charlie Adelson is in prison for life and Donna Adelson's about to end up in prison for life. Have you heard of people planning a murder, Googling previous murders so they don't make the same mistakes? This blew me away.
Well, stupid is as stupid does, right? So, I mean,
I can't get over how good Phil looks, man. He looks like Liam Neeson. He's got like a Liam Neeson. You've got like a Liam Neeson vibe today, like a leading, like a Hollywood tough guy look.
I've lost my Metallica look, I guess, maybe. I don't know. The haircut that Helmut's got right now, I kind of, no, I don't think I don't know that I have heard of that type of thing where they're actually researching other crimes. I think we've heard over and over again about different, especially serial killers that have studied other serial killers, that kind of thing. But these folks, I mean, I took a look at, I mean, they're, between the three of them, I don't know that you could, blow a BB out of an ant's ass, but, I guess people in general just do not, continue to amaze me to what capacity they will go to do something like this. And then their playbook is coming right out of already a failed plan. So again, I guess in this particular case, stupidity has no bounds.
Purple Coconut says, I feel like I have to compliment Scott. Always looks fantastic, as always. So that goes without saying. As does Phil. Phil just struck me. I think it's the time in Hawaii that did it. But so let's get into some of the details of this case of these three knuckleheads. Scott Duffy, July 12th, police respond to a man shot. They find this guy, Matthew Restelli, dead from multiple gunshot wounds. At the time of the shooting, when they find him dead, they arrive on scene. They find 3 adults and 2 children in the home. Who are the adults? The estranged wife, Kathryn Restelli, Kevin Ellis, the brother of Kathryn, the estranged wife, and Tracy Grist, Kathryn's mother. The 2 children are unharmed. They are now, of course, victims, and they are in the custody in Utah. It is the Division of Child and Family Services. The American Fork, that's the name of the town, police say that what followed their arrival was an intensive, time-consuming, and meticulous investigation. And they say it led detectives to believe that Kathryn Restelli and Tracy Grist worked in concert with the brother, Kevin Ellis, to lure Matthew Restelli from his home in California so that Ellis, the brother, could kill Matthew. This is complicated. Let's break it down. I mean, from your perspective, American Fork PD, I love that name, American Fork. They arrive on scene. They find this guy shot. The guy claims it was self-defense, which we'll get into. You're an investigator. You're not going to take him at his word. What are you looking for? And I'll tell you some of the things that they found that led them to believe it was not in self-defense.
Yeah, so police arrive. They know it's not a whodunit because the guy with the gun is probably saying, I shot him. And I shot him because my life was in danger. So it's not a whodunit. And now law enforcement has to begin. Okay, what did take place? You have a lot of people in the house. You have 2 children, and then you have potential witnesses. Are they all going to say the same thing? Did somebody's, what did everybody see? So ultimately, it comes down to let's separate everybody and let's begin our crime scene. So the crime scene's being done and detectives are doing interviews, and my belief is, like anything else, you just know if a story is flowing or not, or if it's all BS, and is it jiving with the evidence that's there. So does this person's story make sense that it's self-defense, and why? You got to come up with, so why does person all of a sudden come to your house and present a knife or present some other weapon and be in such a intimidating, threatening manner that you needed to shoot this person in self-defense? And so that story has to ring loudly with everyone that's a participant there. So if you have the mother and the estranged wife that are either witnessing or saying, oh, maybe he came, is there a history of abuse? Is there a history of threats? Was this, what happened that brought this guy several states away to arrive at the door? And I take it the story is going to be, I want my wife back. And so all that stuff, law enforcement is hearing, listening, recording, and then ultimately say, does this fit with our history of the investigation? In other words, going back and seeing all the potential abuse allegations, of course, the phones, who's in contact with who, and then ultimately the witness account. So if he shot his brother-in-law in front of his sister and mother, are they seeing the same thing that he is telling law enforcement? And then ultimately law enforcement probably found some pretty early holes in these stories and said, okay, this is not what it seems. So let's proceed with the murder investigation. And we already know who did it, the person with the gun. And then Who else?
Even I could figure that one out, Scott Duffy. Scott, by the way, have you ever heard of shooting a BB out of an ant's ass ever before, prior to this couple of moments ago when Phil
No,
uttered the
no. This is a show with many firsts, and I write these things down. Phil has
COE. We got to get the Phil merch on the shirts. Phil, can you explain the derivation of shooting a BB out of an ant's ass and how it fits into this? Never heard of this in my life. It's got to be an Oklahoma thing.
Say that again.
Phil Waters, you said something to the effect of like shooting a BB out of an ant's ass. No one has ever heard that. What does that mean, and what does it mean in this context?
Well, I guess what I should have added a word in there was that if the three of them together, their IQs were gunpowder, they couldn't shoot a BB out of an ant's ass. So maybe that will clarify it. By
the way, does anyone know how to spell BB? Is it BEEB? Someone let me know how you spell BB.
BBs.
I know there's
BBs, like a BB gun.
I know, but is it BEE? Because there's a clothing store. BEB.
Two BBs. Two BBs. BB.
You got to be able to spell it.
Two B's. BBs.
Nah. So, Phil, I love this show. I miss these guys. Okay. So, Phil Waters. Again, detectives say that this trio lured this guy. So police arrive on scene, and your former colleagues here, the Utah, the American Fork PD show up. The detectives show up, and lo and behold, this guy Kevin Ellis, somehow in the time that this alleged crime was committed to when they arrive, he's now got an attorney by his side, and they tell, along with his attorney, that he had shot Matthew, so it is not a whodunit, but believed it to be self-defense, claiming that Matthew had a knife. Now, they were asked by your kind, the detectives, where did the knife come from? Did he threaten anyone with it? And at that point, the attorney told him not to respond. The attorney then offered a little bit of his own information, and I'll hold it here, that Matthew, this guy, showed up uninvited. Phil Waters, how often would you arrive? This is weird to me. You would arrive on scene, and whoever was in the house already had an attorney present to speak to you. Does that happen infrequently, I would assume?
No, I don't believe I've had that type of thing happen.
So you've never arrived on scene with someone with a lawyer,
attorney already there? No.
Wow.
No. I mean, I've had cases where attorneys contacted us very quickly, and we already had the person in the interview room. And of course, the only person that can invoke a right is the person, and the attorneys cannot invoke the right on their behalf. And even though they would certainly try to do that. And those are always fun conversations between us and attorneys. But that is a bit unusual. It certainly goes to the point about the prior planning of this thing. And as I understand it, I believe the knife was planted, or the knife was in the dead guy's hand, right?
Yeah, but it didn't fit. We're going to get to that. Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah, and the apparently the blade was turned in such a way that it didn't make sense the way it was laying in his hand.
Yeah, in this case,
that's pretty incredible. Anyway, that if the knife is in fact in his hand, again another step in stupid 2.0, I guess. You put a knife in the guy's hand that you've just shot. So and
it wasn't like fitting properly. So in this case, if I may take a moment, and this is for Jimmy McNutty, in this case, if it doesn't fit, you must convict. Jimmy McNutty, a trial watcher from the OJ days, he's in the chat. Some people said my bromance with McNutty was over when I saw Phil Waters glow today. And Phil, did your wife tell you how good you're looking today? Did she say this? Can Phil not hear me?
What's that? What?
Why can't you hear me today? I said, did your wife comment on how good looking you are today? Did she tell you how well you look?
Well, of course.
There you go. By the way, people have Googled it, and Phil, once again, you are right. They say it's the letter B, but I refuse to believe that that's where it ends. I would like STS Nation to investigate further. There's got to be a derivation of BB. It's got to stand for something. It's ball bearing. Look at Violet. Violet wins a prize. Ball bearing. So it's ball bearings. I never knew that. Did you know that, Phil?
Well, it could be. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, that would make sense because they are little ball bearings, I guess. So
Yeah.
perhaps that's what it stands for. I don't know. Somebody can Google that and fill us in. But I guess they didn't have many Red Ryder BB guns in Israel, Joel, where you were growing up.
I mean, you're not curious when you hear. I thought it was like BEE for something, like two B's. But then Phil says it's two letter B's. But then the letter B's have to stand for something.
That's almost amazing that you thought that. But
little round silver balls. Back to Scott Duffy here, the man. Soothing Scott, the man of reason. I need some soothing. This has been a long week, everybody. Court docs, Scott Duffy. So this investigation by the American Fork, I love that name, Utah. If anyone lives in American Fork and you could send me a hat or a shirt, I will reimburse you. I want a hat or shirt that says American Fork, Utah, even if I have to go there to get it. But court docs show the marriage, Scott, was in trouble. So investigators are looking at court documents that Matthew and Kathryn were living in California, but again, we're having these marital issues. So Kathryn, the estranged wife, moves to Utah to stay with mom, Tracy. And now, even though they don't really need it per se, police have an absolute motive here. They say that the motive behind the murder was that Kathryn, who moved to Utah to live with her mother, wanted a divorce and was worried it would be a lengthy process. Police say she was also worried she'd lose her kids. So, Scott Duffy, just circling back to our, by the way, someone gave me a great idea. Can you get a hat for American Fork, Utah on Amazon? I didn't know this. Scott Duffy, going back to our original case, the Markells. So Dan Markell is married to Wendy Adelson. Their marriage starts to go south. This overbearing mother says, I have an idea. Let's get rid of Dan Markell. That way the kids don't have to stay in Tallahassee. They can come to Miami. And 10 years later, she's about to spend life in prison. Again, I have to ask you, I mean, this motive, it's I guess as old as time. Why choose this method, Scott Duffy, of getting out of the marriage?
Yeah. Isn't that the age-old question? Why this? Why this long way to get to? I don't know what the number is of cases that have existed from, let's say, from the time they've been recording, where people have been successful in offing their spouses, soon-to-be ex-spouses, instead of just leaving them and dealing with the ramifications, which is it's tough, and there's lots of money that flows through, lawyers involved, and then children who become the pawns to these adult problems. But I still don't understand where time and time again that the decision is made. It'd be easier if I just have them removed from earth, so to speak. And then, of course, there's nothing like a conspiracy. Somebody always breaks in a conspiracy. And the fact that you're talking about two different states, so they're having to communicate by phone, text, email, whatever. They're having to communicate this plan. And so
hold on, Scott. I got to cut you off. Brooke Joe. I live in the town near American Fork. Brooke Joe, I will Venmo you the money. Please email us survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. And you might be lucky enough if we make up a shirt that says something along the lines of shooting a BB at an ant's ass. I'll send that to you in return. So COE, we got to get on the like the updated merch. COE is working on 1,000 things. She's going to scream at me when I get home. For Scott, I did not mean to interrupt, but I saw that and I had to jump on it. Please continue, Scott.
That's a worthy interruption.
Yeah.
Send 3 American Fork.
Yeah,
t-shirts.
send one for Scott and Phil, and I'll reimburse you for all 3.
Yeah, so it's just time and time again, and I think law enforcement has this pegged. Hey, this is yet another conspiracy to remove one spouse or another. So yeah, I don't know when they all get together in their conspiracy theory meeting or conspiring meeting to say this is it. This is like the perfect plan. Nobody's ever thought of this before. Let's move forward with it. So yeah, kudos to law enforcement for obviously early in their investigation realizing this is not self-defense.
Yeah. Phil Waters, before I get to this question, which I love this question, from your perspective as a retired homicide detective and one of the best that there ever was, what is it like for you? Phil, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, awesome. By the way, Cook 13 Doodles says Phil could easily double for James Hetfield of Metallica. So there you go. You still look like him. What is it like for you when you arrive on a scene where you know who committed the crime, but you still have to go through the process of investigating it? Is that frustrating in a weird way? Because it's like you just want to cuff this guy up and try him or her for murder. But I mean, what's that like for you? Because it sounds like investigators knew very early on that they had their people here.
Well, that's the difference between showing up at a smoking gun and showing up at a whodunit. So the smoking guns, I mean, are from an investigative, you know who your suspect is, so you don't have that aspect of an investigation. But you still have to do everything that needs to be done to make sure that when this thing gets later on into a prosecution, that you've provided the prosecutors all of the evidence that they need to have a successful prosecution. So I don't think anything in terms of working the scene or talking to the witnesses or speaking to the suspect, none of that changes. I don't think there's any the level of intensity on a whodunit is to find out who done it as quickly as possible. And so that's where the pressure comes in that, because you want to find out in these smoking guns. One thing that it does do that's a benefit to the community, that it can be put to the community that this is not a random act, that there's no further danger to the community in terms of this particular scene. So because you have that suspect in custody. So I don't see a real difference in either type of scene, other than the finding out who done it on one of those scenes.
Where did that come? Graciela Gracie G in the chat. It's 5 a.m. where you are. Please tell us where you are and welcome. I don't think I've ever seen your name in the chat. Phil, I got to go back to you, and then I need both of you to answer this one. What is the dumbest, or who is the dumbest offender that you've dealt with, Phil? What is there one case that stands out where you're like, I literally just cannot believe what is going on here?
Oh, wow. I'd have to probably look in my logbook to
Do you still have your logbooks, Phil?
Oh, I do. It's sitting right over here.
Is that like every case you've ever worked?
Yes.
How is that like in a big binder?
No. It's like a logbook, and it's a I just wrote down the year. I wrote down the complainant's name, the case number, if we had a suspect, the suspect's name, and then if we charged somebody, the charge information, and then the disposition of the case.
And did you keep that for legal reasons or for posterity for you?
Oh, I kept it for my own. I wanted to be able to look back on those things, and if I got questions about that and so forth and so on, I would be able to. And I've got a lot of my files. When we started moving into the world of digital stuff, I was able to retain many of those cases, the case files, the videos of the interviews, and scene photos, and so forth and so on. So, I'm a hoarder when it comes to that stuff. I'm an investigative hoarder.
Yeah. We had a doppelganger of Lionel Richie earlier, and now we've got Metallica on. So look at this, both in the same week. And Ned Smith, always sharp. STS, the place for music. Mossberg Mom, Google America Fork T-shirts. There's a ton online. It's got to come from American Fork. Is it American Fork? I think not America, but it's got to come from the place of origin, or I don't trust it. A lot of scam artists out there who know that I want one of these shirts. Scott Duffy, to you, who is and then we're getting back to this case, who's the dumbest criminal you've ever come across?
Yeah, I did that. It would take a little soul searching. I'm not sure I can come up with the dumbest, but I will say, over a series of cases, there was, like a single dumb moment, and you found it, and it's like, wow, that was. But I'll just say, in taking a break from gang work, I went over to do some elderly fraud work. The romance scams and these lottery scams, and the way we would get them from out of country to come into our country, where we could arrest them, is Disney World, and so everybody goes to Disney World, and we would figure out, help them maybe with vacation enticement, and then once they were on the plane and arriving at Fort Lauderdale, took them into custody. It was nice.
By the way, mods, please get that clown out of our chat. You guys know who I'm talking about. Someone with a very disturbing name. There's no room for that. No tolerance for that. And I don't think Phil or Scott saw it, because if they did, Phil might and Scott might have whooped some ass right there. But get that person out. Please. Thank you. Okay, so Phil Waters, or Scott, let me go back to you, because I think we left off with Phil. So Scott, Kathryn, the estranged wife, tells detectives that Matthew, the husband, decides to drive to Utah to speak with her, and along the way he starts calling multiple times. Investigators also point out that under California law, they say, from what we understand, that if Matthew wanted the children back in California, they would need to have been returned. Kathryn did not want that to happen. This is according to the American Fork police lieutenant, a guy named Stuart Four, as in golf 4. And they go and they seize their phones during the murder investigation. And lo and behold, they find a text from Kathryn's sister from June 20th. And it says, "I'll be watching the AirTag," as an Apple AirTag, "and let you know as soon as it updates." The search showed that Kathryn had gotten a text message from her sister on June 20th, stating that she's going to watch the AirTag movement. Right there, as an investigator, Scott, I mean, this is interesting, because when do you know you've got the goods? Like, you're definitely onto it right now. But this is not enough, I assume.
Yeah, it's another piece to the puzzle, and thereby another piece, the fact that somebody can't help themselves by sending a text in a vacuum. It means absolutely nothing to the person sending the text. But then when law enforcement, a good law enforcement agency will always look at the big picture, and ultimately whatever the story that is told, the fact that the marriage is horrible and that abusive and so forth, and all these stories will have some sort of corroboration via text and other witness accounts. So here's a clue to law enforcement to say, okay, let's go and see what this is about. Well, regarding the AirTags, and by then, just the fact that they're able to show when they're purchased, where they're put, and then ultimately, were they able to track them? Are they in the house? Were they removed, from whatever luggage, or was it sewn into something? Something obviously, it was put in. I imagine, if not the vehicle, something that he would have had relatively with him at all times. And all those things go to show, wow, this is not corroborating their story. This is something of a conspiracy. And so thereby just keeps them going. We're on the right track. We're on the right track. So keep digging until you have enough to say to a prosecutor, do we have enough? And can we prosecute all those involved?
Fascinating. Brianna's asking, has anyone been arrested? Yes. The brother, the sister who's the estranged wife, and the estranged wife's mother are now all in custody. So 3 people have been arrested. And Graciela, 5 a.m., she's coming to us from Melbourne, Australia. I wish I could do the accent, but lest you think we are not a global show, they're watching us down under. So there you go. Phil Waters, I'm going to just take us through a little bit more here. So they've got this Apple AirTag, and now police say that they're literally following that little blue dot like you see on the Google Maps. Police, after, bringing this to the forefront, they say that when they searched Matthew's truck, by the way, this guy, Matthew Restelli, was so thoughtful that when he was going there, he said, please bring out a piece of cardboard. He didn't want, his truck was dripping oil. He didn't want it to drip on the mother-in-law's asphalt driveway. So he was thoughtful. He didn't know what was coming his way. But police searched Matthew's truck, and I quote here, the AirTag was found at the bottom of the drawer, which was filled with random debris, including paper, receipts, magazines, snacks, and drinks. Based on the location of the AirTag, detectives observed it would have been difficult to try to find it if you're not looking for it, obviously leading police to believe that they planted the AirTag. Following the search of Tracy's phone and an iPad, detectives say they were able to show that all 3 of the suspects shared access to it. Another text comes in from this time, Phil, from the brother to the estranged wife, who is the sister, and it says, the text, keep an eye on Find My, which is like Find Your iPhone. This comes in, and 10 minutes later, they say, are reports of the first shots fired. So Phil Waters, now we have an Apple AirTag that comes into play, which wasn't in existence when you first started in your career, but was at the end maybe of your career. They're relatively new. And they are able to say that these 3 people are now tracking this one person, the estranged husband, and a text is sent to keep an eye on Find My, whatever the app was that they were using. 10 minutes later, this guy's shot and killed. Obviously, you guys call this a clue, but how big a clue is this? Phil Waters.
Well, the use of an AirTag to track the guy, that's interesting. But, the downfall of these knuckleheads is all that stuff can be traced, and they found it on the phones and iPads and stuff, and and they're texting back and forth a reference to it. I mean, what a bunch of morons. I mean, do they think but everybody does this, right? They send these things in text messages and think they go where? Like into digital space someplace and disappear?
Into the cloud.
So these are all affirmative links to what these people did to this guy. And in the world that we live in now with all this technology, I am amazed that these people know enough about it to be dangerous and to make themselves look incredibly stupid when they get caught using the technology to further the act. So that part of it's amazing. That's amazing to me that people continue to use this stuff and think it. Once they send it just disappears somewhere.
Yeah, the cloud ain't really a cloud. It's data storage. For those who don't know, it doesn't dissipate like a cloud. Annie K with a good point here. How could his visit? So they said it was an unannounced visit, yet they're tracking him. So that's another clue. Things are not adding up. Scott Duffy, we talked about the knife. So keep in mind the brother says, well, this was all in self-defense here. Police say, and I quote, this according to affidavit, it did not appear that Matthew, now the murder victim or alleged murder victim, was holding this knife when he was shot. It did not appear he was holding the knife when he was shot. It appeared that the knife was deliberately placed into Matthew's right hand after he had been shot dead. And then they go and they take it a step further. They want to know what kind of knife is this. So they figure out that the knife is a brand called Evitac, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and it's put into a mystery box through a thing called My Tactical Promos. So if you click on My Tactical Promos, there's a mystery box that they'll send you, and within that mystery box comes this knife. So lo and behold, detectives now have the mother's cell phone, and she had sent a message to support at My Tactical Promos, saying that the company should stop sending the boxes to an individual in California because the person who had subscribed to My Tactical Promos had passed away. So this is insane, because now she's trying to make it appear that he was the one ordering it, but the dummy is doing it from her own cell phone. I mean, Scott, this case is amazing to me. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, because they are obviously thinking, we're getting to that, COE. We're getting to that. But Scott Duffy, is this something any investigator would do? These are some of the Markel searches, which we are going to get to. COE is blowing up my show here. Move that real quick. Scott, would any good investigator now try to figure out where did this knife come from? I mean, I assume they would look in the kitchen drawer, say it doesn't match that. So whose knife is this?
Yeah. So and those are some of the things that you're going to get from the initial statement. And so as Annie K caught, hey, this is supposed to be unannounced. Well, if it's unannounced, then why go through all these efforts of tracking, and the fact that they knew exactly where he was? Why are they tracking? But not only the why, but to say, okay, your statement that he just arrived unannounced and then probably lunged at me with a weapon is blown out of the water. So if you lie about one thing, what else are you lying about, right? And that's ultimately what law enforcement is doing. And so they're like, if it is what it is, just tell us the truth. And then it's an unfortunate circumstance, but the investigation will show for what it is, and ultimately a district attorney will say the evidence shows it was self-defense, no charges to be brought forth. But law enforcement knew different. They just probably didn't like anything about it. Not that the crime scene itself was telling them, hey, this is not right. And so thereby all this other stuff between the texts, and then to go into exactly what they are texting and contacting companies. It's amazing digitally how much law enforcement can come up with. And the fact that they were able to find that, kudos to them for looking for it, but to be able to find that, to show, that just refutes everything. The fact that even to the very knife, what if they were not able to, it was a generic knife, maybe he had it in the bottom underneath his seat. Nobody could say, well, I've never seen him with a knife. It would be a question mark that could come up on the defense side, right? But here you can say he came unannounced, and sure enough, with this knife, and we got the better of him. And then they're like, are you sure about that? Because this knife was purchased by the mother or the mother-in-law. So it just goes to show how much planning goes into this, and the fact that he was walking into a lion's den and had no clue what was about to take place. And law enforcement painstakingly is going to be able to refute anything that defense has to say. So I'm glad to see all this that went into it, and it's all coming down to the crime scene, and then ultimately this wealth of digital information.
Yeah, for me, by the way, it's always fascinating. You just heard Scott say that no defense attorney will be able to refute it. So these guys are already thinking about the trials while they're investigating the crimes, which is really interesting. Look at this. My mother has appeared. If you haven't heard, I've written a book about her. I was asking her last night. I said, Carm, what percentage of American sons do you think have written a book about their mother? She couldn't answer the question. She said, what do you want from me, to thank you every time you call? And I said, yes, I would appreciate that. The book is interesting, not because I wrote it, but because of my mom's story. Check it out anywhere books are sold. But she says here, Phil Waters, my mom is also very smart. If you wanted to write a detective story, the knife is placed in the right hand, but the person is lefty, Phil Waters. So Carm reading up, they put the hand in the what's the word for a dominant hand? Black Widow, got to thank you here. I love her, but she scares me. She comes to us from the Republic of Ireland, gifting 50 surviving the survivor memberships. I can't get much more generous than that. Even Ned Smith, look at this. Seasoned court reporter says 50. Wow.
Ask Black Widow if
that's Black Widow, not Black Widow. Widow. Go ahead. Well, say again, Phil.
Black Widow, widower, or whatever she is. That she said that they used to call her the Undertaker when she was in school or something. Ask her.
I think you just asked her, Phil. She can hear you. But Black Widower, let us know. The Undertaker, please expand and expound and let us know. The
wrestler.
Alarm.
The wrestler.
Yeah.
The Undertaker is, right?
Yeah. So let us know, Black Widower. Fill in the gaps for Phil. He's investigating this aspect of your life. Okay, so I'm gonna shoot through some of this because this talking about painstaking investigations is a painstaking explanation I'm giving it to you guys. But detectives, bottom line is they say, look, it is very reasonable that the mother got this knife when she was visiting someone in California. And then an anonymous friend of Kathryn, police are not releasing the name, Phil Waters. So this is now a friend of the estranged wife. She comes forward and says that on May 13th, and this crime, I believe, happened July 12th. So a couple months before, she gets a message from the estranged wife, says, and I quote, I'm trying to wait. I just might murder Matt today, though. What kind of clue is that? I mean, Phil, we do kind of in jest and seriousness, because people will often say, oh, I'm going to kill my wife, or I'm going to kill my husband, or drive me crazy. But in this case, with everything else, it appears that this was not an idle threat. How would this fit into your investigation, Phil Waters?
Well, you interview that witness and you want to find out what was the conversation, what's the context. I mean, now that they've done it, it kind of sheds some light. But still, like you just said, I mean, people. I've never said it, but there are people that will say, I want to kill my spouse, whatever. I'm going to murder my spouse, and not mean it. And so I'd want to know from that witness, what were y'all talking about? I mean, she didn't just pop up and suddenly say, I want to murder my husband. So you want to find out the context of the discussion, but it's still going to be part of the foundation for what happened. And another affirmative link to her directly.
That's another shirt, affirmative link. COE, write these down, get them made. Affirmative link. Yes, I'm tall, was thin, stuck up for kids, had that long hair. Boys were cruel. I guess.
Okay, well, that's interesting because Mark Calloway is his name, and his brother Paul was an HPD officer, worked out at the firearms range, at the pistol range. And I wrote Mark Calloway. I wrote the Undertaker. I didn't write him a ticket. I stopped him on traffic at about 2:00 in the morning. And he was coming home he was coming back to Houston from Austin. And they had just done a show there in Austin, and they were coming to Houston to do another one. And my son at the time, this was in like 93, and my son was kind of big into the wrestling stuff. So he was 8 years old, and we would watch that stuff. And he had two other guys with him. I think one of them was Gravedigger, and I forget the other guy, but they had three.
Gravedigger goes well with the Undertaker.
Of these wrestlers in this Cadillac, this big 4-door Cadillac. So I stopped him. It's in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m, and he is getting out of the car. So I'm by myself, and I'm like, this guy just keeps getting out of the car. He's huge. I mean, he is a big guy.
Yeah.
And so
how scary is that when you pull someone over?
Well, and he was, he's all tatted up and all that. So I'm sitting there going, yeah, it's a scary dude. And I see these two guys in the car, and when he gets out, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, this guy sure looks familiar, but I really can't place where I know this guy from. And so I had just seen the ad in those days. We had a paper, and I just seen the ad for, I don't know if it was WrestleMania or whatever it was. And of course, his picture's on there, right? And this is before he really looked, he got into that mode where he was like super scary looking and all that stuff. But so anyway, so I walk up to him and I ask for his driver's license, and he gives it to me. And he's very respectful. I mean, very, very respectful. And I looked at his driver's license, and I looked at him, and I said, why do you look familiar? And he says, kind of in a low voice, he kind of says, I'm the Undertaker. And I thought he was being smart. And I said, "You're what?" And he goes, "No, I'm the Undertaker. I'm a professional wrestler." And then I snapped and I went, "Oh yeah, okay. Well, that's why I know you."
Ooh, I don't know what happened.
So
yeah.
I said, "Well, I looked at his driver's license and I said, well, Mark, I said, I don't know whether to write you a ticket or get your autograph."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I would prefer to get your autograph." And I said, I could get both by writing you the ticket, and then I would get your autograph. And he kind of started laughing, and I said, but I tell you what, I said, if you'll give me your autograph for my son, I would greatly appreciate it. So he put a cross on it, and he wrote something like "Rest in peace" or something like that, The Undertaker. And I've still got it to this day. As a matter of fact, I've still got the little deal. So, yeah, he was a real nice guy. And then he said, well, my brother's Paul Calloway works out at the pistol range. And I said, I didn't know that. He goes, yeah. He goes, he's HPD. And I said, so anyway, nice guy. So then you flash forward to when they had WrestleMania at the Astrodome in Houston, which was about, I don't know when that was, 3 years later, 4 years later, maybe. And I was working security at the Hyatt downtown. And all of them were staying at the Hyatt. I mean, all of them. The Rock, I mean, all of them. Triple H, everybody was there. That's when China was around. She was there. Vince McMahon, everybody was there, right? And they filled the Astrodome. It was amazing stuff. But I was at the hotel, and they had in one of the big ballrooms, they had a big Jumbotron television screen set up. And the talent would wait in that room and watch what was going on at the Astrodome. And when there was their time to go, then they would see it, and they would go downstairs, and then the limo would take them to the Astrodome, and then they would perform, and then they would come back. They would wrestle. So when the Undertaker showed up in the hotel, I was in uniform, of course. And this was in the day when he was doing Dead Man Inc.
Mm-hmm.
So and he had caps and T-shirts and Dead Man Inc. So I walked up to him when he walked in, and I said, excuse me. And he turned around, he looked at me, and I said, you're Mark Calloway? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I stopped you on traffic about 3 years ago for speeding, and I've got a warrant for your arrest. And he just looked at me, and he went, what? And then he looked at my name tag, and then he started laughing. And I said, so he remembered. So anyway, we chatted, and I said, hey, man, I said, I'm in homicide now. I said, man, I'd love to have one of your Dead Man Inc. hats.
That's awesome.
And he said, oh, yeah, man, you got it. I said, okay, cool. So we're up in the Imperial Ballroom. They're doing their thing. He leaves and goes and does his thing, and then he comes back, and I was sitting just inside the door on the right, and he walked in, and he goes, Phil. And I looked at him, and he threw me the Dead Man Inc. baseball cap, which I have to this day.
I wasn't even going to ask. I knew you would. Where do you keep that thing?
It's in my living room on my above my hat rack and my coat rack.
Look at this, Jimmy McNutty.
Yeah. Sorry to, but
no, that was a great story. This is Fridays at STS. Jimmy McNutty. I used to frequent a cop bar, and they don't tell stories like this unless the entire bar is all cops. This is like being in that bar. Cops have so many different stories they can tell. Phil, didn't mean to cut you off. Were you going somewhere else with that, Phil?
No.
Oh, okay.
And Mark's, the Undertaker's retired now and living a good life. So he's, yeah.
There you go. I'm sure he has arthritis. Back to Scott Duffy here. And our story. We are covering a story today, even though it might not feel like it. It's got to be the weirdest true crime show out there, which I love. There cannot possibly be a weirder, true or quirkier true crime story than this. And that's it. That's our. That's what we get to take that away from this show. Scott Duffy. So we're talking about mother, a daughter, and then the daughter's brother. A little confusing, I know. And they decide to kill the daughter's estranged husband, according to police. This same friend, Scott Duffy, who said that Kathryn said that she might murder her husband that day in May, says that the day of the murder, she sees a social media post which reads, "I have to do big girl things this morning. Wish me luck." She also says that after finding out that her husband, Matthew, was killed in a shooting, the wife responds by saying it was okay and that she was happy. And it doesn't stop there, Scott. She has a FaceTime or a video call later that day with other friends and tells them all that her husband had just died. And she said, "Hey, look at this," and shows them the blood left, which stained the carpet. So she posts on social media. She says, "I'm happy that he was killed," to a friend, and then does a video phone call where she's showing the bloody carpet. I don't think that I've come across a story with dumber people in my entire life. Your reaction to hearing this trio of events that happened post-death and pre-death?
Just when you think the case can't get more better for law enforcement, and they're probably like, "We're done here." No, we're not. Guess what? There's a social media post that's, because she might have been crying, "Oh my gosh, my poor husband," and then here's it. It seemed like no matter what law enforcement has, it refutes everything imaginable that these people have probably come up with. So it's another family saga. It's just, and who loses out here? I mean, good riddance to them, for sure. But the children, they have not thought one day for the children, and now they've destroyed whatever future.
Those kids lost mom, grandma, and dad, all gone in one fell swoop, because these people will, I assume, ultimately be convicted. Ned Smith here, Oklahoma Misfits. If you remember, it was two Kansas moms going for a custody visit, and they are murdered in Oklahoma, Phil's home state. Actually, there is news. The medical report came out on Jillian Kelly, I believe, and Veronica Butler's the other one, and it's coming out. They were stabbed, I believe, multiple times with a lot of blunt force trauma, and I think we're going to try to do a show on that next week. Another horrific story. So Phil Waters, I'm going to put a bow on this in a minute. I'm going to get to those searches, COE. I know you didn't work on those in vain. One of the reasons they know that they lured this guy from California is that 2 days prior to the shooting, when they look at the phone, they see that Kathryn, the wife, texts the mother saying that the husband did not want to drive to Utah from California and was sending a rental car so she could come. She had to get, was claiming she had business to take care of in her home in California. So she talks with her mom, and the mother encourages her to say that you have a sprained ankle and you cannot drive, comes up with some cockamamie excuse. And then he says, "Okay, I'll drive out." And then to the best part of this entire case, I'm going to go through these real quick here. What does it say? Please name it. I don't know. Okay. So on June 7th, this is about a month before, give or take. How old were Dan Markel's kids? Again, he was the target of a murder for hire plot. The ex-brother-in-law is in prison for life. The ex-mother-in-law is going to stand trial. This woman, Katie McBanawell, was the go-between. So how old were Dan Markel's kids when Dan was killed? Katie McBanawell, second trial defense chart she's Googling. And then you see here, she's Googling Utah gun law registration. This is how it was spelled. This is not incorrect. This is how it actually was spelled. Utah shoot break-in. How does private sale of a firearm work in Utah? Followed by, how do I get my U.S. passport fast? How do I apply for a child's U.S. passport? What are the legal implications of taking your kids on vacation without the other parent's permission? Followed by, Donna Sue Adelson right before the murders here. Donna Adelson Donna movie and TV shows. It's weird that she's putting the names in reverse. New Dateline episode, January 19th. Donna Adelson arrested at the airport. When was Donna Adelson arrested? Interestingly, her brother was arrested the day following this search. I mean, Phil, how easy did they make this job for investigators? And again, it just blows me away that our own original true crime story that we covered is kind of at the center of this, with them looking to this woman as a role model for how to not get, they didn't get away with it. So what the hell do you think they were even looking for here? Phil, what were they looking for?
Are they STS members?
I don't know. I hope so. Could use.
Do you need to check the membership? You need to check the membership roll for STS.
Yeah. See how we get on that.
Oh my gosh!
Please.
I mean,
Yeah.
and this is stuff that they were doing searches on, this kind of stuff.
Yep. By the way, real quick, they also found a meme that said it's happening. They also found if my child's father and I do not have a custody agreement in place, can he take my child? Parental kidnapping and no custody order. She was Googling cemeteries in American Fork and all these other things. So, I mean, Phil, what was she thinking? But on a serious note, I guess, with the Adelson angle, what was she trying to figure out? Because they got caught, these people. So what was she doing, do you think?
Well, I don't know. They're looking at the Adelson thing and they're trying to figure out what they did wrong that got them caught, and they're going to improve on that and not make the same mistakes. I don't know. The thing about a passport and all that nonsense, I think these may be people that are perhaps true crime people and got fascinated with this Adelson case, and she's got her own situation with her husband, and mama isn't. So it's kind of the B movie, right, version of the Adelson case.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's hysterical. I mean, these people, and then and of course, what I guess maybe if they did some things that the Adelsons, if they changed some things the way the Adelsons did it, that they're thinking that, okay, yeah, we're going to get away with this. But then they added a bunch of crap to it that went crazy, went off the charts. So if they'd have just stuck with the plan of making adjustments to the Adelson's plan, perhaps they could have pulled this off. But it doesn't sound to me like the plan was not a good one, and the execution of it was even worse.
Jenny Allison with a very accurate comment here. It'd be funny if it weren't so tragic for the kids, but it is, I mean, laughably stupid.
They're the ones that always pay.
Yeah. Ned Smith, always on point. They were STS trolls. Notice to all STS viewers, keep your noses clean. They will look at your searches and views. We're going to do this show Monday, by the way, from a real legal perspective. This case, I don't know, is fascinating me. I think I'm going to have to go to this trial if and when it happens, which I'm sure it will. But on to kind of weird true crime stories of the week and other stories. Amazing to have Phil and Scott back. Scott has got to jump in a few. I've got to jump in a few. And Phil has got a modeling shoot in his Ferrari right after this. He's now a full-time male model. He's given up his investigative career. They were STS lurkers, someone says. So this is a sad story, as most true crime stories are. This is an Iowa mom was killed. Her husband critically wounded when the daughter's ex-boyfriend shoots them. Why? Because they were helping her move out of his home. Scott Duffy, on a pretty serious note here, DV situations, they say the most dangerous point is always when you're trying to leave. If Carm is still in the chat, I have a feeling this guy is a Serbian. His name is Hamza Smodlovic. It ends in VIC, which is often a Serbian name. He allegedly shot the couple with a 9mm pistol. They were rushed to the hospital. The wife died. The husband survived. He is charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, and intimidation with a dangerous weapon. Scott Duffy, what is your words of wisdom to anyone who finds himself in a difficult DV situation? I would assume that the daughter was being hurt by this guy at some point, but what do you say when you're trying to leave?
Yeah, I would say that the clues were probably there. That is why they were assisting in helping the daughter pack up and go. And as a police officer, and that I've been called many times to help out or to just be on scene during the moving out phase, and ultimately there's some level of fear, and so those are very dangerous times, especially if it's not a mutual breakup and everybody going their own way. There are signs of some sort of abuse, high stress, and this is the real moment for the person that may be pondering it, that this is a sign it is the end, and we'll do anything to stop it. So law enforcement is very keen on these things, and I would just say, if the clues are there and there are signs of intimidation and threats and whatnot, don't do it alone. Feel free to call in your local law enforcement, because they're very well aware of situations like this, and try to ensure this is a smooth departure. Yeah. So this is not a shock. This is unfortunately, I would say more of these things happen.
It's a cautionary tale, that's for sure. And, take Scott's advice and call law enforcement if you need the help. Carm telling me Hamza is not a Serbian name, but Carm, I'm looking at it.
It's Arabic.
Yeah, it sounds Arabic, but his last name is Smajlovic, Carm. Smajlovic. Smaj Lovic. Lovic. Carm tells me Serbian guys are pretty passionate and crazy. Mossberg mom, where was her comment? She said, right here it is. Carm correcting her baby boy. It never ends, Mossberg. If only you knew. It never, ever, ever ends. Carm and I go at it. Wouldn't have it any other way. Phil Waters, I know that this is a story. The surname is Smajlovic is a Bosnian patronymic that comes from the Bosniak Muslim names. Oh, interesting. Oh, very interesting. Good work. So it's like a Muslim Bosnian name. There you go. Phil, you'll appreciate this story. It's a sad story again, but a slain Texas woman's body. By the way, when you're in broadcast journalism, they teach you never to use the word slain, because no one uses the word slain except old school newspapers. You will never hear a normal human being use the word slain. So if you ever hear a TV reporter saying slain, they haven't gone through TV broadcasting 101. But anyway, Phil, this is tough to listen to some of this, but a Texas woman, her body is found and it is burning at the scene of a fire. She was a victim of a homicide in April 2023 in your home state now of Texas, of Robinson, Texas. A guy named Derek Dagenau, 26, is charged with her murder. During opening statements at this guy's trial, prosecutors say that the woman's body was found, this is tough to hear, in a plastic storage container, which had then been set on fire. She had been shot in the head. This is the interesting part, though. As her body burned, firefighters noticed that a white Labradoodle named Titan refused to leave the scene. The dog eluded authorities who were trying to catch him before a thunderstorm came down on the area. The next morning, they discover Titan at the exact location where Reynolds' body was found. The man, prosecutors say, took the dog. Prosecutors are saying the dog took authorities to the body. Horrible and beautiful at the same time. This dog wanted police to know where its owner was killed. Your reaction, Phil Waters?
Well, another tragic story of this was a boyfriend girlfriend thing.
I think so. Yes.
And I mean, I'd be curious to know the motivation behind if it's one of these, if I can't have you, nobody else can kind of deals. What the background is on the story, but the dog, the relevance to the dog, that's just, I think, another amazing story about how these animals, and in particular dogs, can be used to reveal truth. And that's why canines are used in law enforcement. They are used in all sorts of capacities. Bomb dogs, drug dogs, attack dogs. I mean, it's and the military also use them for IED detection. So dogs are a special animal, and I'm not surprised about this kind of an event occurring with this puppy dog and this being loyal to its owner.
Ned Smith asking what kind of dog. It is a Labradoodle. It was a Labradoodle, which is interesting because that doesn't strike me as a that kind of story. Scott Duffy, have you seen those photos of like a fallen soldier, and then you'll see like the canine just laying on top of the grave? Have you seen that?
No, but in similar, I've seen pictures, memorial pictures and whatnot of dogs or other animals that seem to be somehow paying tribute in their own way or missing terribly, knowing what's something's wrong, something's missing.
Well, I'll tell you, there is my particular favorite breed are Bull Terriers, and General George S. Patton had a Bull Terrier he named Willie. And he originally called it William, but it got involved with a French poodle, and apparently William went belly up in front of the French poodle, and Patton said, "You're not strong enough to be William," so he called him Willie. But when Patton died, there's a picture of Willie in front of Patton's, all of his items that were left behind, his helmet, so forth and so on. So these dogs are very special.
Yes, they are. Look at this from Graciela. Dogs are amazing. I always had Australian Kelpies. She lives in Melbourne, so that makes sense. By the way, Graciela, I saw that you're interested in the book. Please let me know. It should be on Amazon down under. If you see it or you don't see it, let me know. Surviving the Survivor at gmail.com. Curious to find that out. This is going to, I'm not even going to go there. I was going to say something crazy, but I'm better off not. My mom's going to yell at me. In my 50s, I'm worried about her yelling at me. Well, I was going to say is that Carm's going to be here another 150 years, but the day she goes, I'm going to be, that's why I asked Scott that story. I'm going to lay probably on top of her grave like a forlorn dog. I'll be there for the next 30 years, just laying in a fetal position. The kids are going to have to come visit me. It's going to be awful. It's going to be cold because she's going to be buried next to my dad, which is in outside of West Orange, New Jersey. So anyway, that's pretty depressing, and something no one wanted to hear. But anyway, so Scott Duffy, this is your Commonwealth, a Pennsylvania man. That's your state. Carmen Martinez Silva. She's 50 years old. She was fatally stabbed Sunday, November 3rd at an East Hempfield Township home in Lancaster County. Familiar with this area?
Yeah, it's about 90 minutes from me.
Wow. Bill Davis, by the way. This is, thank you for the super chat. What mystifies me about a case like this, if you do this to someone you have a known conflict with, you'll be the prime suspect out of the gate with no prior experience. You have to fool all of that. Yeah, impossible. I agree with you 1,000%, Bill Davis. So do you care, Scott Duffy, to venture a guess as to why Benjamin Garcia, who's now in custody, was arrested for this crime, for murdering his girlfriend? Do you know what the motive was? Do you care to take a guess?
Jealousy.
Close. That's a usual motive. Phil, you care to take a stab at this one? No pun intended.
What was the background again?
This is a 50-year-old woman, Carmen Martinez Silva, stabbed by boyfriend Benjamin Garcia. He's in custody, and he spoke to police and said he used a large silver kitchen knife. And he told police officers the reason he did it. Do you care to guess the motive in this one for a stabbing?
Well, I worked a case where a couple of Cuban guys got in a fight over a piece of chicken, over a drumstick. So I'm thinking it may be along these same lines. If it happened in the kitchen there, that there was some item of food perhaps that she either didn't cook properly, or he wanted it and she wanted it, and he decided to kill her for it. That'd be
You're very close, Phil, and it's obvious that you're a veteran homicide detective. By the way, Becky said, let everyone know the book is on Audible. It's narrated by Carm and I. So you get to hear Carm's mellifluous voice, us narrate. I don't know how we did that, but I'm just glad it's done. Dogs are also here. You see this. Thank you, Carla. Trained to detect low blood sugar, seizure activity. So the answer to the question, the motive here, according to affidavit, the woman, Carmen, cut her hair, which angered Benjamin. He did not like the haircut. Does this surprise either of you two? Scott, does it surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, he killed over a haircut. Pretty woman. Can't understand it myself. Here's one that comes out of the Chutzpah books, and then a couple of really quick ones, and we're done. Again, your state, Phil. A Texas man. He's currently out on bond. He's charged with manslaughter in connection with the car-related death of the mother of his child. But his main concern now, what he's asking for, is custody of his kids. It's unclear what exactly happened, whether he tried to run her over, whether it was an accident. But he is now accused of killing the mother of his kids, and he wants custody. Should he be given custody? Phil.
Oh, what? Say that again?
I don't know.
Some of these questions you ask, Joel, go on forever, and then I'm trying to figure out if there's even a question there. So,
I only do that with you, Phil. I don't even remember the story. Oh, this guy is accused of killing the mother of his child.
Oh,
I was charged with manslaughter, but now he's out on bond, and he wants custody of their kids. What do you do in that situation?
Well, of course he does.
Do you give it to him?
I'm not so sure that would be I would, especially in these family violence things, there's going to be some intervention there. I cannot imagine the court giving him this custody of the child. They're going to put that child somewhere, maybe with another family member who's can be trusted to take custody. But but you see this all the time. I mean, they think that they can do something like this and then and just go on living their lives. So I don't think I just can't imagine a court allowing that to happen.
Look at this. Ned Smith says you're focused on your modeling shoot after the show. Okay, so I'm going to whiz through this one. This is just a cautionary tale. Oklahoma woman, she's arrested for buying meth to a man. She was buying meth, and she gives her 2-year-old daughter to a man while she goes to buy the meth, and the child is now gone. The child was 2 years old. The Oklahoma, this is your state again, Phil. Oklahoma Department of Human Services was asked to take custody of the child. They cannot find the 2-year-old girl. So literally, the mother goes to buy meth, says, "Hey, can you watch this kid?" Kid disappears. So Jimmy's asking, dead or kidnapped? We don't know. Ned Smith's asking the question that we started with: what is wrong with people? A fascinating story out of South Carolina. A police search is now underway. 43 monkeys, Scott Duffy, 43 monkeys escaped from a research facility in South Carolina Wednesday night. They were a group of very young females, and they, I guess, were not tracked. Residents now, Scott, are strongly advised to keep doors and windows secured to prevent the monkeys from entering the home. I would leave the doors wide open, windows wide open, because I love monkeys. The COE would have a nervous breakdown. By the way, the other day, I was doing something all day, like 13 hours long. I digress for a minute. And the COE is like, the dogs can't go out. I said, why can't the dogs go out? This time, she says that there is a rat in the pool. I said, is the rat swimming or is it dead? She says, I think it's dead, but I don't want Ethel to get the rat, bite it, and get rabies, which I thought was a stretch. So after my 97-hour day, I had to get the pool skimmer. Super depressing again. I don't mean to be depressing, but it was a little baby rat, and it was cute, and he had drowned, and he was floating, and I picked him up in the pool skimmer, and I flipped him into the bushes. I said a little prayer, and I walked away. Moments later, Ethel went to that very spot. I don't know if Ethel ate the poor guy or not, but I had to deal with that. But now we're talking monkeys, and I would want a monkey to jump into my home because I love monkeys. Scott Duffy, is law enforcement doing the right thing here by cautioning residents to keep their doors and windows closed?
Yes.
Love that answer. Final story. You've all heard it before. You've all heard it. Even Phil Waters. You've Got Mail. Remember that, Phil, with AOL?
Do I remember AOL? You've Got Mail? Yeah, sure.
No, well, the guy who voiced that, his name is, I love this name, Elwood Edwards. Elwood Edwards. If I ever get another pug, I'm going to name him Elwood. He was 74 years old. He died. He was a longtime employee of WKYC in Cleveland. I don't know what affiliate it is. And he lent his voice, apparently free of charge, to AOL 35 years ago and offered up the old "You've Got Mail" tagline. And that is what we end on. Scott Duffy, I know you look at this. There you go, Phil.
Wow.
Black Widow, and I don't even know what I'm looking at.
How tall is Black Widow?
She's like 5'11". She's tall.
That's tall for a
She's
gal.
scary. Yeah. She scares me. Where is that picture? I can't even figure this out.
Wasn't Elwood one of the Blues Brothers?
Yeah, that's a great name. Am I going to diaper change it? Yes, I would love to diaper change a monkey. I did it for my son and my daughters. I would do it for a monkey. Oh, by the way, there's one more story. The iconic ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz, they've been put up for auction. Bidding began at $812,000. This is the slippers worn by Judy Garland. I got to be honest. I don't think I've ever seen The Wizard of Oz in its entirety because I don't know.
I thought those things were in the Smithsonian Institute.
No, these are, but what's interesting about this, these are the sequin-adorned footwear worn by Garland's character, Dorothy Gale, in the 1939 movie. By the way, that's the year Carm was born, 1939. They were found, Scott Duffy, in 2018. The slippers went missing, with the FBI sharing in a press release that they discovered the shoes in Minneapolis while investigating a scheme to defraud and extort the Markel. Interesting. The Markel's back. The Markel Corporation, which owns the items. It was apparently being extorted or stolen by a mobster, and the FBI. Here we go. The AP identified this person as an aging reformed mobster who stole the slippers after he was encouraged by an unidentified former mob associate to commit one last score. Scott Duffy, are you proud of the FBI for being able to retrieve the slippers worn by Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz?
Sure, yeah. And I do remember that story when it was unfolding. So
amazing.
Kudos to the FBI.
I almost forgot that story. Look, that's a big deal here in Minnesota. There you go, Jenny. Happy for Arizona. Oh my God, he just texted back that he's only 25 miles from the monkeys. This must be Mossberg's child. Let me know if he sees any. I would love them. By the way, monkeys inhabited the area around the Fort Lauderdale International Airport. They're not native, but I've done stories on this. There's like 100 monkeys that live right around the Fort Lauderdale Airport. And sometimes they scare the crap out of people. Scott Duffy, I've taken more of your time than I was supposed to. Your final quick thoughts, then Phil's final thoughts, and we're out of here.
It's good to be back with you, Phil. So,
what about me?
Well, Joel, yeah. I mean, we were together last week.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
It seems like it's been forever, the three of us. Glad to be back in the saddle with you guys. So it's fantastic November afternoon here, just outside Philadelphia.
Enjoy the day. Phil Waters, glad to have you back. Last time, I think I said stateside. You said Hawaii is in America. So back on the mainland. I'm sure you're already itching to go back to Hawaii. Your final thoughts, Phil, on this glorious Friday.
Well, I'm going to set them all off with one simple statement. Is this a great country or what?
Oh, boy. Oh, I'm not commenting on that. Here comes
God bless America.
Send that to Phil Waters, Phil Waters at hatemail.com. I love you, America. Love you, Carm. Love you, Houston. Love you, the Big Island. Love you, Oklahoma, Texas, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Delaware. Ned Smith says my panties aren't even in a wad.
Did you see that? Did you see that little comment before?
No comment from Leo Wren. I did not.
The one about laying on the hood of a Ferrari. Did you see that?
I didn't see that. No, what did it say?
COE put that up there again.
I could see Phil laying on the hood of a Ferrari on a rotating platform. So could I.
Well, you know what? That goes back to Tawny Katane on the hood of a white Jaguar.
She died
in the White Snake video with I think Coverdale owned that Ferrari, owned that Jaguar, as a matter of fact, and they were dating at the time. So there you go, a little rock and roll trivia.
Yeah, I think she passed away. Love you all. I got to let Scott go, Phil go, and I got an appointment. See you next week. We're doing a bunch of shows next week.